I really, feel that this is really a pertinent session, a pertinent moment, because this is really a time when indie cinema is really coming of age in India. Even, if I go to the early days of cinema, the cinema of history and cinema of independent filmmakers, there has been a very strong parallel. Even when, Thomas Edison started this thing called the Edison Pact, it was like a cartel which pushed all the filmmakers to the western coast of US, and that's how indie filmmakers started getting themselves coming of age, and eventually the studio system was born. It is ironical, but again from that very studio system we had the indie cinema. So today, now that we have reached a time in India where independent filmmakers are really, coming to the fore, and the two of you have been trailblazers in that regard. I've been following your work, Leena, like forever, and I've been following your work also. And also had the pleasure of attending that session that you gave at Mami, wherein I got to know about the wonderful history behind Mukti Bhavan and how it traveled to Japan, and it had a 150-day run there. So Sanjay, why don't we start with that, your Mukti Bhavan success story and how it all happened. So what was it that pushed you in that direction, that you have to go for the festival route and not a typical theatrical route for your film?
No, it did theatrical release in 30 plus countries, and overall we did 60 country deals on digital platforms, also in different
often a lot of the filmmakers are tempted not to go for the theatrical run, and directly they want to put it their film for the big screen release.
The world premiere was in Venice, and as I was telling in that session also, we got a 10-minute standing ovation, very good reviews. Next morning we got a mail from Netflix saying we want global rights for this film for OTT. We politely turned it down because somewhere we were getting this feedback immediately, and there was some belief even before it was screened that this film has the potential to go international theatrically. And so therefore we had to, no matter however lucrative that offer was, but we said no. I think this film, like Lunchbox, was a great inspiration. Monsoon Wedding was a big inspiration for us. Bend It Like Beckham is a big inspiration, though they were, international films. And we said, no, let's give it a big shot. And we just went all out. And there was one very passionate lady from a sales agent from UK. She was like chasing us for 5 months to get that film, and we were scanning other people who had approached us. And we went with a new company, but a passionate sales agent who believed in this film, like, I will die for it and do everything best possible. And I think that was the best decision we took. And they did a great, great job of, this film and taking it in global.
And I think the rest, as they say, is history.
Absolutely. And so there was one gentleman in Venice. He was part of the Venice program. And he said, this is the next Lunchbox. Go. Just go. And, third, somebody who's completely unbiased, not trying to, butter you or something like that. And he also strengthened our own conviction that this film will connect with audiences around them.
I think that's the beautiful way of putting it. That's the next Lunchbox. So I hope one of you goes on to make the next Mukti Bhavan. Leena, we were having this conversation outside, and we were talking about, independent cinema and how clarity of thought is important sometimes when you are making a film, when you have these budgetary issues. I was reminded of Maya Deren, the famous American indie filmmaker, avant-garde filmmaker. She once said that, if I were even given lipstick budget of a Hollywood film, I'll make a full-fledged movie, in that budget. So that's the kind of, will and conviction you need as a filmmaker. So Leena, when you were shooting Parch, we were talking about, coverage, and we were talking about the challenges, of working with a filmmaker, with a cinematographer, who has been working as part of the studio system. So how challenging was it to push the envelope, as this filmmaker who had amazing clarity, and you have in the past edited your films also. So what it is to go out and shoot for edit, in that sort of a way, and not really be worried about coverage and patchwork later on. So how important is that clarity for you as a filmmaker?
So Parched was a very defining film for me as a filmmaker. It was produced by me and my husband. So it was very, very challenging, but we actually reached for the stars, to get the best people on the job, despite it being such a small film. And that was the best thing that we did. So we had Russell Carpenter, who in the past has shot Titanic and currently shot Avatar, one of the best cinematographers.
Wow.
And it's a long story, but basically he ended up reading my script and he called me and said, I know you're married to a cinematographer, but I'm shooting this film. I said, Russell, we can't afford you. He said, I'm going to afford you because I want to do it. Wow. So the thing is, that was so reassuring that they are artists. You know, at the end of it, we are all artists. And not everything is for money. I ended up working with one of the best editors in the world, Kevin Tent, on that same film. Sound design by Paul Otterson, 3-time Oscar winner. So the thing is that you have to reach for the stars. Saying no is their job. You can't censor yourself because firstly, as a community, we filmmakers have to understand we are artists. So, yes, so I was telling you this incident that while I was shooting with Russell in Rajasthan, first 5 days he was really angry with me and he said, you're not doing enough coverage. These locations we are not going to come back to. I said, but I know what I want. I'm not going to just do coverage. And after 5 days, he comes to me and he says, I get it. You know what you're doing. And I haven't worked with a director like you for a really long time because I'm working in the studio system where everything is about coverage. So, it was a great learning experience. And I think having these voices made the film also more universal. And I dream of a world where, you can have a team with a member from every part of the country telling one story.
In fact, for those of you, who haven't seen some of Leena's early films, you need to watch Shabd, which she also edited and directed and wrote, if I'm not wrong. You see some, great signatures there, and of course her work now, it's becoming more and more formidable, and we'll come to your recent work also. But I also want to give you a little overview about Sanjay, when he was working with BR Films. And he really made some instrumental changes, and I was reading somewhere that how you made things more profitable. Like they had, the BR Chopra films, they had completely forgotten about Mahabharat. And you really brought it out of the closets and you really brought it to the fore. So that marketing background of yours and, to idea of understanding how to use things more economically, has it also helped you in, when now you're making your own films, say Mariam now and say Mukti Bhavan before this and other short films that you have been making, how much that has helped you, in what you do now?
So when I was in BR, I was CEO of a company, so I never went to a set. I was responsible to drive the organization and do the business, and I was learning the ropes because I was in advertising earlier. I think when Red Carpet was formed with my partner Sajida, I dirtied my hands in production, and we were producing TV commercials first, and we continue to do. When you're starting business, you don't get big projects. So we were getting small projects. So, how do you make it more efficient in production? And as I dirtied my hands more and more, and we got a lot of exposure internationally, we did some big commercials also. So then Kush, which was the short film we produced in just 5 lakhs of rupees and went for Oscar nomination, Venice winner, and just that much money, 5-day shoot with 20 kids, 20 mothers coming, managing food for them, everything, but shooting like a film. I think all these experiences helped to understand that, your money can work harder, you can optimize resources, you can, make everything count and yet not compromise on the quality. So just an example I'll give you, Mukti Bhavan was just made in 150,000 euros. That in those days was 1 crore 5 lakhs of rupees. Mukti Bhavan budget is that much. Because we were in a competition in Venice, and the money they gave us, saying you have to finish the film in this. So Mukti Bhavan was made not because I'm a smart producer. I'm a good beggar, and I can sell myself very well. And each and every cast, crew, actually, I believe, contributed to making Mukti Bhavan to what it was. They all believed in it. They loved the idea of the film. The director took the vision with them together, and everybody contributed to that film to make it happen in that small budget. Otherwise, you can't go to Varanasi for 1 month and shoot and come back and do post-production and make a film in 1 crore 5 lakhs.
I think that is the only way to make these films. You
So
know, when
love, we call
everybody-
it love budget films. Everybody loves the movie and you make it in that budget. So if you have a strong, powerful idea, you can do these kind of things. And like she said, Parshed with such a big, international crew and support and so many actors and locations. You can't make a film like that if you're not if your film is not going to have legs, and if you don't have a passionate director like her, and her husband supporting in every way. But she was telling me it's only possible to contribution of everybody coming together and how you lead that team. And you should be.
These kind of films cannot be made in a studio system. I mean, that's the reality of it. So that's why we as a community really need more dialogue amongst us and support each other.
I strongly feel that courage is very important, and I would really make this word synonymous with Leena, what you have been doing, over the years, particularly what you did with the Burari, project. Could you also shed some light on that? How were you able to push yourself and, go that extra mile? I don't think that anybody else could have had this kind of courage on this kind of a project, but you really made it happen. Now, of course, others are imitating it and now bringing it in a fictional way, but you really chose a very gritty approach to that project.
So I never imagined I'll make documentaries, but it was a chance conversation with some Netflix, that the Netflix international team was coming here. So when Burari happened, I was appalled at the media coverage. And I was like, nobody's telling us what really happened. 11 people disappeared. What is our responsibility? Why? There wasn't a single opinion piece written on it by a senior journalist. It was covered in the most tacky way possible. So I said, I'm sure there's something very uncomfortable here, which is being covered up with this whole tantra mantra that they are, So I pitched it to them and they were like on board immediately. And before I knew it, I was in Delhi. And then I was like, what have I signed in for? Because those were some of the most difficult conversations. And I went through a lot of introspection as a filmmaker, saying, like, how can I be this person saying that I know this is a deep hurt in you, but now I'm going to scratch it and ask you these very uncomfortable questions. So it was a lot of learning for me. Also unlearning from being a feature director that I cannot have my own narrative. I have to find the narrative in what people say. I think I brought back a lot of learning from that into narrative. It was a very difficult journey. We all as a team had nightmares. There were like strange things happening in our own lives. Everything became 11 in our lives. So, but yes, we had to get to at least the part of the truth that needed to be told.
So how did you overcome this feeling that I'm sure you must have gone through that, okay, let's forget this project and move on, to better things. So what was it like to overcome this?
Actually, very early, so more than that, I was really disturbed by how am I having these conversations with people and then really pushing the envelope to tell the truth, because everybody didn't want to tell the truth. Also, as a culture, the moment people are dead, we want to say they were the best people. There are so many things that we don't do. But one of the early conversations, which was these two men in a village who were brothers of women who died, after the interview, they came to me and they said, we achieved a healing today with your conversation because we've not been able to have this conversation even amongst ourselves. So this is घर की बात घर में रहनी चाहिए, so deep rooted that whatever, even if it's speculative, to just imagine ये हुआ कि ये हुआ, they could not even have these conversations as a family amongst themselves. They just shut down out of shame. So that made me feel, no, I'm on the right track. These conversations just need to be had. And we have to convert this into a collective social responsibility. It's not their story, it's our story. And for me, any film that I do, the day I start feeling it's my story is when I know I'm making that.
And how are you able to keep everybody around you in your team motivated that yes, we are going ahead with this?
It was very difficult. But at the same time, like I'm telling you, we literally, all of us had nightmares. We were staying in Lalit Hotel when we did our first schedule, knowing the characters Lalit. So there were a lot of things which were happening around us. But I think at one point we really wanted to get to the truth collectively as a team. So that's what kept us going.
Fascinating. Sanjay, a little curious about, your approach, if I talk about, say, Mariam now, which you have come out and we just had the screening, and I can see people, they're really moved. Vis-a-vis, say, a film like Mukti Bhavan. How have the learnings from Mukti Bhavan, helped you make Mariam, I'm sure, more economically, or probably now you are a more seasoned person in that sense. So if you could share these two journeys, as a parallel, for the benefit of all those who want to do it.
So there are two spectrums we work in. In BR, we were making only big films. So Bagban, Babul, Bhutnath, these are all big productions. And then I approached Deepa Mehta. We made 2 films with her because she made Water. We loved the film, nominated for an Academy Award. I went to London. She came from Canada, so we made those things. Commercials, what we do now, are actually the other end of the spectrum. Most of our commercials are budgeted at about 5 to 6 crores with 2-day shoot. And Mukti Bhavan in 30 days I made in 1 crore. You understand? So I think every project you do, you bring learnings here. Mariam, of course, Mariam was in that sense. We knew it has limited revenue potential. So we even crunched down the budgets further down because the lead actor is not that popular. She's from Calcutta, Chitrangada, and but everybody was aware that let's make this, let's see what will happen, because nobody can decide the fate of a film before people see it. We might feel very good about it, but if the audience rejects it, even the biggest blockbusters don't do business, make big losses. And sometimes you find those little sparks which actually create a big fire. There have been so many such examples.
Absolutely.
So if I keep thinking about, what will happen money-wise, what will happen? So I was giving one example to them. I strongly believe in this, on this Gita thing. You do your karma, phal ki chinta mat karo.
Niskam phal.
And at the end of the day, whatever is in your destiny, fate, it just works out. Right now what we are enjoying with Mariam is the love it is receiving by people. It's connecting with them. Story that they can't imagine, saying, wow, this is new, something which we could not envisage that, okay, something like this can be made. For us, that's the biggest reward and the greatest feeling, that people are loving the film. फिर अभी देखते हैं, hopefully next 6-8 months कोई ना कोई बोलेगा यार चलो, let's pick it up, and we recover some of our investments, what we have.
So I'm a little curious, is it a hunch or, a very strong inner conviction that, okay, no, I have to back this project, when you do decide that, yes, I'm going ahead with
this?
this?
No, it's never a hunch. It's always conviction. See, if you're convinced about something, that this has to be made, then you just go all out and make it happen. Never a hunch. Hunch is for people, I think, saying, oh, I'll make money out of it. For me, that's not the first objective. My first objective is, I love this project and let's do this. So what is the best possible way we can package it and make it happen? Right?
Leena, say when you are doing a film like Perched, or you are Past, or you are doing a film like Rajma Chawal, where probably things are little, glossy in that sense. There is Rishi Kapoor and there is a more juicy element to it. And yet, when you watch the film, it's very gritty and very intense. So how do the challenges vary, when you are working on a film like, Rajma Chawal vis-a-vis, say, a film like Parched?
Nothing varies for me. From my first film to now, I have made it with the same conviction. It's been challenging sometimes to work with stars. And I think maybe I was not as confident about my voice in my first 2 films, but Past gave me that. Now I can work with anybody. And it's not going to influence the way my film turns out. So, yeah, for me, Rajma Chawal and Parched were like the same experience, and I had an amazing time. We're working with Rishi Kapoor on that. We were in Chandni Chowk and we were eating lots of food.
And when you know that, okay, you are releasing the film and you have the mind that it's going to be a theatrical release, vis-a-vis, say, when you know that it's going to be an Amazon release or a Netflix release, as was the case with Rajma Chawal, are you a little more relieved, as a filmmaker?
So, yes, So when Rajma Chawal was ready, I actually got a call from Netflix and they said, we heard you've made your next film, can we watch it? Because they had just started buying originals. And my first reaction was, no way. You know, how can we just go straight to OTT? But I had a bunch of some 10, 19, 20-year-olds working with me, and all of them said, ma'am, how can you not do this? This is the coolest thing, to be a Netflix original. And then the reality really did strike me that we were finding it really difficult to release a film even with Rishi Kapoor in it. You know, we were not getting a distributor. So I said, okay, fine, let's give this a shot. I did miss the theatre experience, but luckily we went to 2 festivals in London and Miami. So I got the theatre experience. But I have to say that people all over the world reacted to Rajma Chawal overnight. So that was also a big high. Otherwise, they would be looking for theatres. You know, has it even released in our country? So that was a huge, huge high for me. So it has its benefits. But I mean, filmmakers will always say theatrical first, because honestly, being in that theatre with a collective audience, the energy is different, the viewing experience is different, it's collective, it's community, it's got a lot of value.
It's cinema also in a way.
Yeah.
Which probably, you know, it's how it is defined, you know, to be able to watch it in this darkened room with a group of people. And Sanjay, you know, there was always this perception, you know, among people who are not as aware of the cinema business. They see the producer as the paisa wala, the money man, you know. But when I see producers of today, when I see you, when I see somebody like, you know, Ronnie, I see a very different kind of a producer emerging. I'm sure that has always existed, but nowadays we see more proactive producers like you, who are more like, you know, I can call you one of the Arthurs also in that way because of your deep involvement with the project. So how do you see this changing, you know, role of a producer?
That's an interesting question, tough one. But I think what is driving now is the new age directors that are there. And directors even like Leena, from where she started, and now when I see her journey on Parched, then the docu-series, and now the next project, she gave me a glimpse of that. So she's not following the path of what she was doing earlier, and what many of people continue to do that. I think, and these new age directors and writers are trying to come out of with their own originality, their own voice, their own vision. And I think that is also and you know, some of these films like Past or Mukti Bhavan, or even some of the past examples, even Aankho Dekhi kind of films, and there's so many inspirations around us. Court, and you know, many Masan, and so many films are there. Also, I think getting these directors to come on board, or the producers on board, saying, I think I connect with this, I want to back this cinema. So there's a lot of more voice being added. Even Martin Scorsese recently said that, you know, I particularly go and watch independent cinema in a theatre. Because that is, if the audiences start coming in, you know, more and more productions like that to tell new, refreshing stories with a very different take than the commercial films, both should coexist.
And he can't be the paise wala, because these films are made in the dearth of paisa.
Correct.
And I think in these kind of films, the key collaboration has to be the director and producer. And they both have to share a creative vision.
That's right.
You know, and whether it's the money responsibility also, in a lot of ways, at least I share with whoever's producing these films, understanding that it is difficult to make these kind of films.
So how actively do you seek out producers like Sanjay, or producers, you know, who share your creative vision, or who understand, you know, what it is?
I only work with producers who have a creative vision. I don't work with producers who have money.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I think this is really the mantra. I think this is the key takeaway from today, that as a director, as a storyteller, you need to find somebody who shares your creative vision, who understands that vision. It's not just about money, that, okay, I have all the money in the world. If that were the case, I think some of the biggest and the richest people must have been the biggest, you know, film producers in the world, which is not true. So can we also, Leena, go towards this Cowgirl project? You know, Sanjay has already teased about it. So if we can get a sort of a teaser, you know, that as what we can expect from you on this one.
So I'm going to be directing a film called The Cowgirl's Last Ride. It's a completely Hollywood film with Geena Davis in the lead. My producers are the producers of The Intern, What Women Want. They're two very strong women, amazing people. And we're finding it difficult to raise money for it. I was just telling Murtaza that, just because Michelle Yeoh wins an Oscar doesn't make the next film with Michelle Yeoh easier to make. And that's really sad that these accolades don't translate into reality. That's really heartbreaking for me, but it is what it is. And we will still find a way. So hopefully in 2024, I'll be shooting this film, which is set in Texas. We have an amazing cast in place. Jill Scott, Geena Davis, Scoot McNairy, and Russell Carpenter will be shooting the film. So, yeah.
So quickly, I want to come to you, Sanjay, before we open it to the audiences. Do you have any specific release plans for Mariam as of now?
I think this film, if we manage well and we get lucky, it should go on a OTT. I don't see theatrical potential for this film. Very difficult to market a film with people, the cast people know. But if I do get an opportunity, I might even do a limited release if it's possible, because there are some new things under development apparently, which will make easier for independent cinema to go to theaters. So I'm exploring that, and if over next 5 to 6 months that happens, I'd love to see it there. Like she said, cinema is cinema, right? On a big screen, it just gives you a very different feeling. And I really believe, like, there's a movie I saw recently called Past Lives.
Yeah.
So I saw it
the Korean film.
Yeah, so I saw it in a theater in Bombay. Me and my son went there, and it's not Pathan, it's not Jawan, it's not James Bond. It's a very beautiful story. In every frame, there's two people are there, 90% of the frame. And when you see it on the big screen, there you can actually see the emotions. It's like a poetry. You can just, it gets you into your system, into your soul. And you enjoy that experience of a movie, there rather than on a big TV screen in your home. You enjoy there also, but magic is in cinemas.
So I think I'll thank you, both of you. It's been
Thank
a
you,
most
Murtaza.
engaging conversation, and now I would like to open it to the audiences. We can take a few questions. We have about 5-6 minutes. So, yeah, please. Okay, we have more time. You have to leave, Sanjay? Like, I was told that you...
It's 1:20. Yeah, 5-10 minutes. 10 minutes is good.
Okay, 2 questions. Okay, all right. So, who is asking the first question? Yeah, there. Can we have the mic there, please?
You want? Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Hello? Sanjay sir, I have a question for you. Like, how do you decide if a film is going for a theater release or OTT? Like,
You also want to answer? See, again, like Mukti Bhavan went to theaters in India. There, the objective was very clear that, this film, it's a very powerful story because it was getting acceptance everywhere in the world. So, you know that you need to take that chance, you need to make that investment there. And it was, I think, a good investment also in terms of, because when you release a film, you need to back it up with money as well. Generally, if there is some, known faces in your film, and it's produced in a budget, you think, and you need to put the money behind it on advertising and marketing of the film. And if you see that return on investment will happen on that, as well as, it can also accentuate the pricing of the film for OTT and television rights and all that you have to sell. So you think through everything, and then you take that call. So in case of Mariam, like I want to be practical about it, that even if it gets a good platform for OTT release, we'd be very, very happy. Because there are no known faces in that. And to pull the audience, you need really big muscle on money, and it's tough. It's tough to put that much money in. On a,
Sorry. The thing is that to have these kind of films in theaters, firstly, the audience has to become much more responsible and not ask questions like this. But secondly, I think, see, the distribution model puts in crores and crores on a film which is already so known because it has a Shah Rukh Khan and a Salman Khan. The moment you have an indie film, they release it apologetically. So there's no publicity. It actually requires bigger publicity than a Jawan, but it's not possible. So something in the distribution model has to change to be able to afford this. Also, what is going to be cinema is going to get redefined in the coming year. So let's see where we land with that. Right now, grateful to have at least an option of OTT.
Ma'am, I just want to follow up, if an independent filmmaker now, like for example, I am, so if I have a project, so how do I is it just conviction that you think it should go on theater or OTT, or how do you decide that?
There's no roadmap to it. Firstly, conviction will not get you the options. So what are your options is the reality. Because by the time you've made the film, you've spent all the money you had. So at that point, you're looking more for options than, having ambitions of doing things which you cannot afford to do. So, yeah, and there's no roadmap for it. I mean, we make choices sometimes which are unreasonable, and we have carried it off also, but...
So, I've recently seen very big budget films, whether it is Varun Dhawan, and they've gone straight to OTT. Even a guy who made Dangal, his last film,
Nitish
Nitesh Tiwari's film. Big film, yeah, with Varun Dhawan and all. And Varun Dhawan's 2 films have gone directly to OTTs.
That Europe film, that globe-trotting Europe film.
Correct. So, there is no, as she said, because you have a big hero, it'll do theatrical. That's again, things are changing. They are so fluid, right? And a small film can go into cinemas as well. So it all depends on that environment there, what is the mood of the audience. Because right now, with the last 1 year, with some 5-6 big release Hollywood films and 2, 3, 4 Indian film releases, the audiences have started coming back after pandemic into cinemas. So there is a definite change of mood there. But definitely, more often than not, a small budget film with hardly, much very popular actors, very, very challenging to release a film theatrically. But if, for example, you're making a film which is, say, maybe only meant for an Assamese audience in terms of theatrical, then I think it's a little easier to release a film locally in this region. And then if it does well, maybe you can expand it to other markets. That's a possibility. And even international. Right?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so we have time for maybe 3, 4 more questions. Anybody at the back?
Hi. This was very, very informative, so thank you. Thanks a lot. My question is, there is conviction is one thing, and then there is also actually the potential of the film. So for young filmmakers, for new filmmakers, what is important? What are the ingredients that actually make a good indie film? What is it that needs to be there in the film so that you can actually, the kind of love budget you're talking about, that you can have people on board and you can actually push it with all your conviction. So what are some of the key ingredients that you feel have to be in place for you to put all of that energy in that project?
I think before anything else, it's something that you teach, a good script. Beyond and that is the beginning of the journey of anything. And that is a great thing to pass on to other artists that you want to collaborate with, and see what conviction they come on board with on that before you get into money and possibilities. So the foundation, I think, whether for a big or an indie film, has to be and should be the script sometimes, many times, it's not.
So we believe that the idea should be universal. Like Mukti Bhavan also, was an idea which was relationships. Parents get old. What do children do to help them, or they don't participate at all? And there were two people here sitting. We feel proud that our parents have given the opportunity to support them and be with them, and they are with us, right? So, universal idea, how great the script after that is, and I think how honest you are in executing it, whether it is the casting, how local it is. If the more the story is local, actually has a global potential, according to me, because these are stories they don't know. They don't know those stories, and from Assam, from Northeast, from Delhi, Kanpur, Bombay, wherever. The more local you are, and you're honest about telling that very new story, it has to be very, very original. If it's heard of, this thing won't even connect locally with people. Forget about global, And all festivals want that original film, a very honest, original, refreshing film. However painful it is for them to watch, in that sense, like it can be very moving or disturbing or whatever that is.
Sanjay and Leena, in fact, I have a question, and you have a case study of Japan, of how Mukti Bhavan, ran there for 150 days. I also have a case study from Japan in how they have these mini theaters, and they're very popular in Japan, and I think they contribute to a very strong, big chunk in how the film business is run. In India, I think there has been a growing monopoly in that way. I remember, when I was in college, we had films like Bheja Fry, and they used to get a very good theatrical run, and regularly we used to have this kind of a sort of a parallel. But right now, I don't see theaters supporting that kind of cinema in India as much as they should. I understand that, of course, there will always be films like Mukti Bhavan, there will always be good films, which will get that. But somewhere I feel the backing from this side is not there as much as it should be.
So, very commercial driven. So even if it is a big film, and if it is not doing well, they'll drop it next morning. Recently, I know.
No, but at least they make it to the theater. These films don't even make it to the theater. There is that. I mean, there is a muscling out of these kind of films.
There's another point.
Yeah.
The other point is, I have grown up watching Nasiruddin Shah films, Om Puri films, Ardha Satya and all in cinema. People used to go that time also to see. In fact, when multiplexes came in, we all felt, wow, now independent cinema is going to rock. Sorry, that didn't happen.
Unfortunately, that hasn't happened.
I had to struggle with Mukti Bhavan for shows, saying, don't give me 11:30 show, because my audience is a more matured audience who will go and see my film. I had no qualms to think that we have made a Sholay, right?
I think that's also because of the corporatization of even theaters, right? Earlier, theaters were owned by shauqeen people who loved films, who didn't give a damn about anything and said, I'll play this for like 10 weeks. देखेंगे क्या होगा? वो है नहीं अभी. Everything has gone into a register now, and it's all become a plus and minus of things. Sometimes a film needs to breathe. I mean, if you hear of the biggest films like Sholay and all, they picked up after 6 weeks. Who gives time for 6 weeks now? I mean, I know we live in a very instant world, but you have to stay with something sometimes for it to really become something. So that opportunity is not there now, but we have OTT where, instantly the film is 190 countries and, open to audiences everywhere. So, yeah, you win some, you lose some. We lost a lot.
Actually, the reason why I asked that question is because I'm a little curious. In the West, we have people like Quentin Tarantino, they have some cinema halls which they own. Do you think something can be done in India wherein, independent filmmakers, they come together and maybe have some specific cinema chains, where they only screen this kind of cinema? And of course, once the profit, because there is an audience for this, that we all agree.
Like in UK, there is a brand called Picture Central. They have over 100 screens in UK. And in all those 100 screens, Mukti Bhavan was released, for example, in UK. In France, there is this culture.
He also has Curzon Cinemas.
Curzon Cinemas. Picture Central, then Japan you have. So it's all about, you go to New York. We were in cinemas in New York, and it was there, few shows, but it was prime time shows.
But will it be possible in India?
So that is, I think, like in Maharashtra, there is a rule by the state government that
Marathi
films must be screened. X number of shows have to be done if there is a Marathi film there. So it's like, big corporates do donations because they're forced to do it beyond a certain turnover. 2.5% has to go for social investments, corporate social responsibility, as we call it. So I think maybe the government should say, listen, these guys need support. Plus, the thing is, we are paying same fee of P&A to the cinema what a Jawan pays. Now, isn't there...
So unfair. It's really unfair.
So we need that support also as independent filmmakers, right? If I'm paying the same thing per show, per theatre, as much as Jawan, where is my revenue going to come from?
I feel really jealous of countries like Turkey and all, or Korea also, where the film that goes to the festival is the biggest hit in that country and has a big run. Here there's such a demarcation, oh, this is a festival film. I mean, I have also had that comment thrown at me कि hello वो film से पहले वो पत्ते वत्ते निकाल दो नहीं तो कोई नहीं आएगा. So play down your achievements on that film because otherwise it's going to be a turn off for the audience.
No, and actually sometimes you're talked down upon. तुम्हारी तो festival में, तुम्हारी तो theatre में क्या है? And I'm saying, man, I'm celebrated internationally. Why not here? Right? Honestly, we have a very good equity globally as a production house, as a filmmaker, my son, that with past, I was telling her yesterday, it was such a big hit in France. It ran for some 6 months. It's not a joke. There you're celebrated for an idea like this. And here you're looked down upon by my friends, I know. Good show, good luck, बस. जैसे कि कोई मर गया है.
Because I very strongly felt that this is something that can be addressed. Thank you so much, for throwing light on that. Yes.
Yeah.
Beyond.
Hi, Leena. Hi, Sanjay. So you mentioned that, I mean, we know that you're going to be working with Geena Davis on your next project. She also has the Geena Davis Institute, which talks about CJ in one of the projects that they, really champion about women representation and girl representation in the media. How have you seen, through your journey, the role of women in cinema and in the Indian industry as such that way evolve over the years? Has it gotten better? Has it become easier, become tougher? What's it like now?
I've often talked about this internationally also because when I'm, out of India, they always ask me, oh, poor little India, you women are now finally doing. But we've had a huge history. I mean, we've had such strong female directors through our times. And
Absolutely.
We are so fortunate that we have had that. And despite that, we are not where we should have been is really sad. But that being said, the presence of women in technical fields of filmmaking has really, really increased. And honestly, today, if I do it, and I never do gender casting, I don't, because I know that I will have enough women on my film purely on merit. And that's why it's a very tricky box we are in. When we say, oh, best female director, why? If you put this in, in the whole lot, they will still win. Why put us in that box?
Absolutely.
So it needs the attention, but it doesn't need the box, I think. And purely on merit, I think the numbers have really, really increased from the time that I started out. As an editor, I had people walking out of the edit room because they didn't want to work with me. To now, it's been a huge, huge jump. But still it's not. Still we don't have enough female stories, on screen. Why? Because also one learned that the consumer is also the woman in the house decides what film to watch. So she's the spender, then why the hell isn't she represented? Why is there still that gap?
Yeah, so basically the message to the younger girls who want to take up cinema or get involved in cinema is that there isn't too much of a barrier.
There isn't, and there's enough women in the field. They will still be, because it's conditioning. It's not about men versus women. It's conditioning that we are fighting all the time. Sometimes people are instinctively reacting to not having you as an authority figure because conditioning.
Patriarchal.
Yeah. So that
hangover.
we have to keep, kind of rubbing that off. It's a long job. I mean, even I'm still working on it. So I can imagine.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, so I think we can take one more question. Otherwise, we'll wrap it up now. One question, anybody? So, all right. I think, yeah.
I have a question for Tanu. Tanu, will you be calling me next year?
So I think we had a very fruitful conversation here. We talked about the different aspects, and this was nothing less than a masterclass for me also, I also picked up so many interesting things. So I'm really looking forward to a lot more, and we all are, looking forward to a lot more. Thank you so much, to the Brahmaputra Valley Film Festival for organizing this wonderful panel, and I'm sure, it's just started, and we are up for, a lot more fun. Thank you so much.
Yes, and it's my first time here and I love it. So thank you for inviting me, Tanu.